Hot Coffee is an HBO documentary that discusses the misleading methods that the insurance industry used to pass tort reform and persuade the American public to gain sympathy for big business, corporations, and other defendants against victims of personal injuries. In this episode, we will discuss how Hot Coffee demonstrates that caps on lawsuits do nothing more than line the pockets of the wealthy at the expense of taxpayers and at the expense of the most vulnerable of society, the tragically injured. Welcome to PA Voter Information Network. This is Larry DeMarco, your host. This is part 2 of a 4-part series. Without examining the situation, it might seem reasonable to place caps on damage awards for personal injury victims. However, with a closer look, you will see that they do nothing more than enrich billionaire companies at the expense of taxpayers and really seriously injured victims. Hot Coffee featured Lisa and Mike Gorley and their twin sons, Colin and Connor. Colin was born with cerebral palsy as a result of medical malpractice. In their story, they discuss detail of the clear medical malpractice which undeniably caused their son cerebral palsy.
When you're pregnant with twins, it's really important to determine how many placentas. When I went in, it should have been immediately followed up with an ultrasound.
You just want to change what happened, knowing that it was preventable.
They discussed their story, which gave detail of the clear medical malpractice which undeniably caused their son's cerebral palsy. The defendants were insured, and the doctors had been sued for malpractice on 2 prior occasions, and even afterwards as well. They discussed their story with Amy Goodwin of Democracy Now!
Did you go before a jury?
Yes.
How long did the trial take?
Well, it took like 7 years to even get to trial, and then the trial was 3 weeks.
And what did the jury decide?
The jury found Dr. Nola and her group negligent, and they awarded Colin $5 million for medical and $625,000 for pain and suffering. And in the state of Nebraska, there's a cap. So the cap, there was a total cap on everything. And his projected medical expenses were $12.4 million. So a cap.
So the jury decides whatever they decide.
Right.
And then the judge just changes the decision. So why do they bring a jury into this to begin with? Or why don't they tell them you can't give more than a certain amount?
I'm not sure why they don't do that, but it's part of the legal procedure.
And why does Nebraska have this cap and how many states do?
Well, the cap like we have in Nebraska that caps both your economic and non-economic damages, there's only 4 states, three that do it totally, and Colorado kind of has a way around it. If like in our case, if the judge would have decided in Colorado that the cap was unconstitutional, he could have thrown out their cap and allowed the verdict to stand. But in other states, I think it's it's Nebraska and
Indiana and Virginia.
Indiana and Virginia have hard caps.
So what was it capped at?
1.25 million.
And there's nothing you can do about that?
Well, what we did, our attorney, right after the decision came back, we went before the judge and had a hearing and said it's unconstitutional. This, to take away the money he needs for his medical bills and the rest of his life. He's never going to be able to work. And the judge came back and said it was unconstitutional to do that. It violated his right to a jury trial. And at that point, the doctor and the insurance companies appealed the case to the Nebraska Supreme Court. And it took 2 years for the case to go to be heard, and then it took 15 months for them to come back with a decision. And what they did is they reversed the lower court's decision and said the cap is constitutional,
And they've upheld it.
and they've upheld it.
What does it mean if there is a cap? Who ends up paying?
Well, and what ended up happening with us, our situation, is we had insurance with my husband's employer, and then he lost his job, and I couldn't get call-in insurance because they would only insure the three of us because of his pre-existing conditions and surgeries and therapies and everything. And so he ended up on Medicaid. There's a medically handicapped children's waiver that helps take care of the medical.
So the taxpayer pays.
Right, basically the taxpayers have.
It protects the corporations, but
Correct. And the doctors had plenty of insurance. Her group and the organization that owned her group, they had millions of dollars in insurance to cover this kind of thing, and they paid their premiums, and the insurance companies contracted, and they have an obligation to take care of these kind of things. But the tort laws just let them go free and keep their money, and the taxpayers have to step up and pay for it.
are you trying to change the law in Nebraska?
Yeah, we've been lobbying for years in Nebraska, to going down to our state senate and talking to all our state senators, and now they've all kind of switched over now. We've had a couple elections since then, and we've gone back to D.C. and lobbied a little bit on the federal levels as well. So.
And what does it mean for all of you to be here for this film that brings you together with other people who are not facing the same thing, but the general idea of corporations that have taken precedence over people who are controlling laws?
Well, when this happens to you, most people don't even know what they've done to the civil justice system or what's going on. They listen to the propaganda and they think, oh yeah, there's all these people filing all these bad lawsuits, and so when this happens to you, you realize what's going on and you see it, but the average person doesn't know. We've been trying to get that word out forever.
Well, I think this movie does, and I thank you very
Yeah.
much for being here with us.
The term tort reform is sold as a cost savings measure to the public, but in essence, it is cost shifting. The insurance industry gets an enormous savings in avoiding a multi-million payout to a deserving family that proved its damages for a painful, disabling, maiming injury for medical bills, lost wages, and severe pain and suffering. But due to caps on damages, the verdict gets erased. The damage cap does nothing to prevent lawsuits or deter frivolous claims because the caps can only be triggered in the event of a catastrophic award. Damage caps guarantee that the victim will not have enough to pay for his or her medical bills, and then will have to seek compensation from Medicaid, Medicare, or other taxpayer-funded resources. So when taxpayers agree to enact a draconian law like tort reform in the nature of damage caps, in essence, it is a cost-saving measure for billionaire corporations rather than any benefit to the middle class, small businesses, or the public at large. This has been part 2 of a 4-part series. If you like this episode, please subscribe to PA Voter Information Network. Forward this link to all the people on your contact list and social media friends. Click the like button and leave a comment. Signing off. Tune in next time. Bye for now.